This is Today Explained.
My name is Joe Suarez, and I was a journalist in Cuba.
You left in the summer of 2022. Why did you leave Cuba?
Well, I left Cuba basically because of the persecution that the regime imposed on journalists, independent activists, people who want freedom for the island, a change. And I was one of those. I was doing reporting, investigative reporting on themes like torture, political prisoners, persecution of religious minorities. In that case, that put a target over me, and the regime harassed me in different ways. I was kidnapped once by the political police. I was detained several times. My family was harassed. My mother, my wife, also, who is a journalist, also who was a journalist in Cuba. So the break point for us was when the regime says, you are raising a child. We had a baby in that moment that is going to become counter-revolutionary because you are a counter-revolutionary. So we're going to take your kid from you, away from you.
Oh.
And that was our breaking point. My wife and I, we talked about that because we think family is the first homeland, and we had to protect our kid. I think we try to protect him as much as we can. And for instance, there was a moment when the political police kidnapped me in the middle of the street. I was walking in the neighborhood and trying to get some money from an ATM. And the political police just came and they said, you have to come with us. And they basically were trying to threaten me because of my investigative reporting on political prisoners, torture, that kind of stuff. And my wife was waiting for me at home with lunch. She was waiting for me, and she just didn't saw me came back. So how we deal with that, and our kid was a baby, but he kind of asks, where's dad? We would try to deal in a very, it was tough. It was tough. And I was freed like 2 hours later, but I don't want to share with him, in front of him, what was happening, because I don't want him to hate his country, the country where he was born. I don't want hate to, I can separate the country, which is wonderful. It's a geographical paradise, an amazing story. But the government is so terrible. The system is terrible. The system is diabolical. So I don't want him to be traumatized and thinking, okay, this country, I hate this piece of land because what they did to my dad or my mom, or how my mom was suffering.
What is it like to live in Cuba?
89% of Cuban households live in extreme poverty. Can you imagine? 7 out of 10 Cubans cannot eat 3 meals a day because of lack of money or food shortages. The other thing is, when you get some food, the blackouts are so long that you can lose that food in your fridge. It can rot, and it's super sad because the lines to get food, lines that I myself did before I arrived here to the U.S., could be like 12 hours to get a piece of chicken. That is not enough to feed your family. So the despair is tangible in Cuba. It's big in Cuba. You can feel the despair.
All right, so it is in the context of all of this that President Trump says he wants regime change in Cuba. He is not being subtle about it. He's actually being quite loud about it. What do you think about this coming from Trump?
Well, I think Cuba needs a change, a big change, and not a cosmetic change. Cuba needs a system change. The centralized system in Cuba for the Communist Party has been destroying not only the economy, but the life of thousands of families. There are separations. My family and I, we were very lucky that we can arrive to the U.S. together, but we have a lot of friends and family members that are being separated because of migration, because of exile. What you feel in Cuba now, it's hope. People are also with some mix of anxiety because people don't know what's going to happen. But people think there is hope because the policies that President Trump is taking, and especially because Marco Rubio is in the team, and Marco Rubio because of his Cuban heritage, he really understands, I think, what's happening in the area, what's happening in the Caribbean area, what's happening in Latin America.
What does a change look like? You said you want to change, but what do you mean specifically?
Well, I think the sovereignty of Cuba should reside in the people.
You want elections.
Of course, and I want pluripartidism, and I want a republic. I want Cuba restored in the orbit of the West. I don't want these foreign ideologies like socialism, which is a foreign ideology from Cuba, obviously. But it's a foreign ideology that has destroyed the economy and the life of millions of people.
American presidents have tried to find ways of dealing with Cuba for generations now, right? President Obama restored diplomatic ties with Cuba. Raul Castro, as a result, started liberalizing the economy. President Trump is distinct, though, because in both terms, he has just been a lot more aggressive. Would you prefer that it was not Donald Trump trying to make these changes in Cuba, or is this a case of it really could only be Donald Trump trying to make these changes?
That's a good question, Noel. I lived in Cuba during the Obama era, and I think a lot of people were have hope also, genuine hope of these different approach. Not because they see Obama or Trump as a special figure or whatever, because people want to get rid of the socialist system.
In the most significant changes in our policy in more than 50 years. We will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests, and instead, we will begin to normalize relations between our two countries.
That's why a lot of people. So they say, if you're going to do a deal with them, in the case of Obama, we will see, we will give you some grace to see what happens in the island. The thing is that sadly, during the Obama era, we didn't saw the changes the big changes that people need, release of political prisoners. We didn't saw liberalization of the political landscape, pluripartidism. We didn't saw that. So the approach of the Trump's approach is more connected, I would say, with the Republican aisle of the big Cuban American lobby that exists in Washington, D.C. since decades ago. And I think their approach has been proven more correct during the years, and now is the case also. And I think that it could be controversial. I think Trump is controversial, and he doesn't hide that. I think is a feature, not a bug, as you say, Americans. But
feature, not a bug. Yeah.
But I think the approach has been given a lot of hope to Cubans, and Cubans are willing to give Trump some grace, as they did with Obama. Some Cubans did with Obama, and what I think is Cubans are really willing to see a change. If it comes from Trump, if it comes from another political leader, it's okay.
So let's say President Trump goes in and he does force regime change in Cuba. What would that mean for you and your family?
Well, I would love to go back to the island. I would love to to reunite with my grandfather, who is 96 years old. I would love for him to see my son, that is now first generation Cuban American in exile. That my son Lucas, who was born like a week ago. I would love my mother to meet his grandson and to walk together, again, for the places that mean so much for me and my wife, in Havana and in Camagüey, another city in the oriental part of the island. I think a lot of Cubans are thinking on that. I've been talking with my friends, like, can you imagine if we can go to our church again together, man? Can you imagine that we can go to, I don't know, to the places, to those parks that we just talk hours for hours? Can you imagine? It would be so great. That's why a lot of people have hope, because they really missed what they have lost in the island, in some cases because of political reasons, because you are pushed away, like in my case, and I know in other cases too. You are pushed away because of your ideas, not because you're a criminal, but because of your ideas.
Yoé Suarez is a journalist. He left Cuba in 2022. He lives in the U.S. now. Dustin DeSoto produced today's show. Amina El-Sadi edited. Andrea Lopez Cruzado checked the facts. And David Tadashore and Patrick Boyd are our engineers. I'm Noel King. It's Today Explained.